I think we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone who's joining us today from around the world. Welcome to another World of EUC Insights webinar. I'm joined here with Joe Cooper. Joe, how are you today?
Excellent. How you doing?
Not too bad. It's another beautiful, cold day up here in Canada. I don't know what the weather's like where you are.
It's absolutely frigid. It's
So
17 Fahrenheit, maybe what is that, minus 8 or 9 Celsius?
yeah, something like that. I think the other day with wind chill, we got down to minus 36 Celsius, which is minus
No,
32, I
no, thank
think in
you.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, no kidding. But on a brighter note, today we're having a webinar. I'm just going to share my screen here. Again, I just want to welcome everyone. And by the way, for those joining us, feel free to enter in the chat where you're joining us from.
Oh, please do.
And today we are, or sorry, Joe, just a quick, a little bit of an introduction.
Hanging in there.
Uh, Joe, you're a former VMware, former Broadcom, and from what I hear on the streets, you're now selling to the highest bidder.
Yeah, man, I'm selling my body, absolutely.
Yeah. But you're also
Or
part of the NVIDIA Enterprise Platform Advisor Group. You're
I
also an
am.
Omnissa Tech Insider,
Yep,
and your background is tech marketing and education.
that's right. That's right. I spent about a dozen years doing that with VMware and then later Broadcom. You
Yeah.
might recognize me from some of the on-demand courses, maybe even in person if we've ever met before. Um, I've been kind of all over the world talking about virtualization technologies, VDI, products like vSphere and Horizon for about the last dozen years. So
Yeah. Right
it
on.
was a great run. It was a great run, but life is a little bit strange right now, I think probably for all of us. So
Yeah.
so I'm out there again.
Yeah. Yeah. And here today, you're here to talk to us about with your presentation, zero to non-persistent desktops in 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's all it takes, right? Zero,
Yeah.
you're done. 60 minutes.
Yeah.
No, but that's about how much time we have today.
Yeah.
And I'll do my best to pray to the demo gods. This all works. We'll start with a little bit of a slideshow here. And my goal really is to give you guys, if you're here, presumably you're interested in moving to non-persistent desktops. I'd actually really like to know what your status is for non-persistent desktops. So before I dive in too much, I want to give it a minute or two for more people to jump in. But I'm going to throw a poll up on the screen just to kind of see where everybody is in the room in their journey to get their organizations to the point where all you have to do is say to your users, hey, have you tried turning it off and on again? That's really where we want to be. And so we're going to keep this real light today. We'll try to do some demos. We'll throw a couple of colorful slides at you and hopefully give you guys the ammunition that you need to get to the point where that's all you have to do when it comes to troubleshooting. Tell your users, have you tried turning it off and on again? That's what we're looking for.
We're about 38 seconds into the poll here, so I guess we can give
All
it a
right.
little bit
So
more
the first
time.
question says, hey, I managed either VDI or published apps, RDSH, using persistent virtual machines. These are virtual machines that hang around that I have to take care of, right? That's the first thing. Do you agree or do you disagree with that? Okay. Question two, once you answer that, should be able to throw up there. Do we have like I can't drive this poll. How are we doing with that, Stephen? Can we throw
So
up two
we're
questions at the
about
same time?
I don't think we can do two. We're still sitting on the first question. It's been about a minute and 20 seconds that it's been up. So what I can do is, if we're ready, I can end that poll and we can get the results, and then I can kick off the second one.
All right, cool. Cool.
Should
Well,
I go
let's
for
just
it?
give it another 30 seconds or something like that for folks to
Okay,
do.
sounds good.
And I'll blabber on for a little bit. Anyway, my name is Joe Cooper. Like Steven said, I'm out there. I was with VMware and Broadcom doing education, talking about Horizon, talking about VDI for many years. You can see my LinkedIn here. I hope you guys will reach out. LinkedIn /in/virtual Joe. Please connect with me if you're interested in keeping up with some of this stuff. And it's really a pleasure and an honor for me to be invited here by the team at World of EUC. And I want to thank Stephen and I want to thank Jen and the whole team. And Stephen's gonna help with Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, I want to make sure that they get put into the Q&A panel as opposed to the webinar chat. It's going to help us kind of keep track of them. So as we go on, please feel free, okay, to throw up any questions. And Stephen will interrupt me in the middle of all of this and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll keep this real light here. So Stephen, how's our first poll?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the results right now,
All right.
and 57% agree, 43% disagree.
Okay. Well, for those 43%, then you are on the right track. You're probably already there. Maybe you've got some questions about some of the things that you're trying to do with non-persistent. We'll try to answer those as we go on. Okay, so for those 12 folks or so, let's close that first poll. Let's open the second question.
Yep. And we can't forget too that there might be some folks that haven't even dabbled into VDI yet. So keep that in
Oh,
mind.
yes, of course. Of course. I should have put that as an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, throw that second one up there.
Just kicked it off.
Or both. Absolutely. Both is fine. Both is totally fine. All right. So we've all hopefully kind of, for those of us that are here, and I'm glad that this is a small sort of intimate group. We are recording this, yes? We should hit that record button if we haven't already done it.
On the top right, it's showing me that it's recording. So
Oh, awesome. That's good. Good. Well, we'll have this up there for other people to view later on as well. But I know that, you know, as we sort of live in this world of VDI, and the easiest way for us to start doing this is to build a non-persistent, to build a persistent environment, right? You've got this gold image, you throw a bunch of VMs out there for people to click on, and you set it and forget it sort of thing, right? People can go in, Windows Update manages those VMs, they get updated. Maybe you've got some sort of system like Intune that's out there that's hopefully forcing patches on Windows or whatever, but you've got all these VMs out there. Every user's has their own VMs, and you just say, hey, let's do it, right? Go. That's easy and fast for us today. But tomorrow, it kind of starts to look like this, right? Your users, it's their system, right? And what are you going to do here? They start installing their own applications, right? They screw them up, right? They mess them up. So listen, the problem with these persistent VMs as they stay out there, and they're easy to build right off the bat, but later on, they're a mess for us, right? These VMs have to be individually managed, right? They have to be backed up because your users store their data there, right? On their C drive, for example, right? The users have their stuff, okay? Go ahead and throw that throw the results of the second question up there, Stephen. Go ahead.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So like it isn't always pleasant, right? It isn't always pleasant to be managing this stuff. And I totally acknowledge if you are there. And in fact, wait till you see. Okay. All right. So these systems do have to be backed up when your users store their data there. We have to troubleshoot them. Okay. Is that the appropriate past tense of troubleshoot, troubleshot? We have to troubleshoot them. And when we do, it's an individual user that we have to help and we have to manage them because again, their data stays in those VMs. They do take up disk space. Um, I don't know, Stephen or Jen, if you can take a look at the chat there. Um,
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it.
all right, very good. And part of the problem with our persistent VMs is as our users manage them, we actually have to rely on them to apply those patches and things like that, right? Also, they have a huge number of unneeded apps. So we're paying licenses for apps that we are not using, right? And this is really kind of a problem, right? We find this when we inherit VDI solutions from perhaps customers we're going out and consulting. And we as consultants go in there and we have to manage, all right, now how do we take these persistent VMs to an environment that can be reasonably managed? And they're super expensive. Now, what do we mean by super expensive? Now, this gets into a whole topic of, hey, I've got systems that are out there. I need Windows licenses for every single one of them. These systems have to remain powered on for users to come back. And if a user comes back and they're in there once or twice a week, that still means those systems have to be available for that user. So every VM has to be powered on all the time. So I need the Windows licenses for that. I need, maybe I'm running in the cloud and I'm paying for CPU and memory and disk space for each of those systems. Okay. And all of this sort of stuff becomes problematic. Eric has an awesome question in the Q&A, and it goes into non-persistent VDI and how we build our gold images and how we manage our applications. Okay. And the answer, the very simple answer to Eric's question about what do we do for auto updates in non-persistent VMs, because we've got this gold image and the gold image has an app on, you know, a certain version and 2 weeks goes by. How do I manage the updates for those apps? Right? How do we manage that? It's a bit of a challenge, but there are solutions to that. Okay. The answer is yes. Your app auto updates should have auto updates disabled. And I'm actually going to give you a demonstration today, if all goes well, and we pray to the demo gods and all works, about how to disable auto update in a particular app and make sure that that app is managed separately from the gold image. Okay. This is really important for us to do. All right. Now, we know that our users love their computers, right? We have our machines, and these become very personal to us. So when we rip away something like a physical desktop, or a laptop, when we take that from the user and ask them to work online in a system that IT controls, the users sort of feel like you're pulling off a limb almost. And this is part of the cultural challenge that we as owners of VDI systems face with our users. We have to get them to the point where when they sit down to either a laptop with a client on it, or they sit down to a thin client system, that it still feels like their virtual machine, that they have their fuzzy kittens in the background and that they're all nice and happy in it, you know, and it looks just like this. This is an actual picture of an image of a Windows machine, and it's, you know, not at all generated by AI. The problem then becomes, especially with persistent systems that allow users to do all of these things like change their desktops, is that if there's an application installed in that desktop and the user's installed that app and it crashes, we have to troubleshoot it. So we give users admin rights to desktops and things like that and allow them to install their own apps, and it becomes a problem. Ugh, what a mess, right? Okay. Now, I love VDI, of course, but what I want to be able to do is, first of all, stop crawling under desks, right? To be managing user systems. And I want to be able to tell users, have you tried turning it off and on again? And I want to be able to solve my problems with doing that. Okay. Now, of course, there are people that are out there that are saying, you're a mess, Joe. This isn't true at all. And it hasn't been true for us for many years, right? So if you're in a system where you've got persistent desktops, or you've got a laptop in front of your user and you manage that laptop really nicely. The machines are clean. We don't allow users to install their own apps. We use things like Microsoft Intune, which is great to force updates, right? We have other systems like Workspace ONE UEM from Omnissa, um, or Okta or Symantec. All kinds of systems are allowing us to manage endpoint devices, right? You keep your data on shares. So, your VDI VMs don't have any data on them. That's great. And you've got GPOs to control what our users can and can't do. Okay. I can tell you from personal experience with my wife, who is just leaving her job with the federal government, um, that it takes her laptop 20 minutes to boot, 20 minutes to log in because of all of the security and all of the GPOs that are applied to her system. 20 minutes. We want to be what, 30 seconds? That's where we want to be. Now, if you've got all of these systems in place and you're managing persistent systems like this, or you're managing laptops, then you are almost there. You're almost ready for a persistent system, for a non-persistent environment. So what we really want for our users to have, how about less than 30? Absolutely. I get around 30 seconds in my home lab with old hardware, really old hardware. Okay. Absolutely 30, less than 30 seconds. Because what are we used to, right? Our users are used to these things. And if I have to wait 30 seconds to log into my phone, it's a problem. No way. Right? Our users want less than 30 seconds. We can get there, certainly. All right. So I want our users to have a clean machine every single time they log on. I want all of my user-generated content to live somewhere other than the C drive on that system or on the root drive of your Linux system, right? Somewhere not on that C virtual disk, because these are non-persistent systems. They need to be disposable. When a user logs off, I need to delete that VM and create a new one for them for the next time they log in. I want users to get only the apps they need. So what that means to me is that the apps themselves don't get installed in the gold image. And this will go a long way to helping us not to have to rebuild our gold image every single time an app needs to update. So this is really important for our manageability of the system and the life cycle of that system. Okay. I want all of the updates for those apps to be controlled by me. I want auto update turned off. Absolutely. Okay. And I want the users to believe that they own that desktop, that when they log in, they are getting their system, even though it's not a system that's reserved for them. It is a system based on a generic gold image with almost no applications installed that I can hand to any user and still have that user be able to feel that they are in control and that it is their personal system. Okay. And in the end, if they have a problem, I want to be able to say, have you tried turning it off and on again? That's what I want. Okay. So what's the solution to this? Non-persistent systems. Okay. Systems that are totally disposable. that when the users log on, they get a new system. When they log off, we delete that system and build a new one. Okay. For both virtual desktops and published apps, our RDSH systems, we want them all to be non-persistent. Okay. And it's not going to cost you a fortune. In fact, in the end, it's going to save you money because we only build enough virtual machines for the users that need to be logged in at that moment. We don't have to have massive numbers of spare systems. We don't have to have a VM for every single user because we don't have to keep systems around. Just enough VMs for those users that are logged on at that moment. Okay? So how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, the first thing that we're going to need is a hypervisor, and we're going to need storage. And we want fast storage because we want virtual machines essentially to be able to be built on demand. We don't want to have, again, a lot of spares. So that goes into mostly storage speed. So if we have solid state storage, which has been around forever, we should be able to build VMs in a matter of a few seconds, no matter how those VMs are built. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we can build those VMs and how we choose a hypervisor and that kind of stuff. Then we want a gold image. I'm going to show you, give you some tips and tricks around how to build that gold image. Okay. We want to be able to manage our apps. Okay. Those apps should not, for the most part, be installed in the gold image. They should be managed completely separately and delivered to the user when the user needs that app. Okay. That's going to save us a fortune on licensing for applications that don't then need to be licensed for every single user, just the number of users that are using it at that moment. Okay. It's also going to make it a whole lot easier to update our environment so that we don't have to go back to that gold image right from the very beginning and say, oh my gosh, Chrome needed to be updated, so we have to update and republish the entire gold image for every single user in our environment. Okay. We want to be able to manage the configuration of the machine. Okay. So imagine the configuration of Windows, all of the environment for Windows, any GPOs that we want to apply that apply to that machine itself. Okay. We also want the user to be able to feel like it's their own system. So we want the Windows background. If a user decides to put those fuzzy kittens on, we want those fuzzy kittens to appear for that user no matter what virtual machine that they get logged into. And then finally, we want the user profile to be available for us. Now, the user profile is going to include the settings for all of those applications. So if a user goes into an application and changes a setting because that's the way they like to work with Photoshop, with all the windows arranged in the way that they want it, for example, that when they log in and they get a brand new virtual machine and Photoshop is not installed in that virtual machine, but they double click on an icon for Photoshop, that it launches Photoshop and it loads their data. So we have to be able to keep track of the user profile and put it somewhere that is accessible by that VM on demand. Okay, we're going to show you how to go through the process for each of these things. And we're going to start with that hypervisor and storage. Okay. Now, we have lots of options when it comes to the hypervisor that we can choose from. And lots of things are rapidly changing in this world, as I'm sure many of you know, right? We've got users or customers that are trying to deal with Broadcom right now. I should know that very well. Okay. We've got users that are looking to other hypervisors, things like Nutanix. We've got HP that just launched a hypervisor. We've got lots of stuff, Proxmox, lots of stuff built on KVM. We've got cloud environments, right? We've got Microsoft virtual desktops. We've got Horizon running on Azure. We've got AWS, and they've got their own VDI system that's out there. But what we want is some way to very, very quickly, rapidly build virtual machines. Okay. There's lots of different ways to do this. Most of these ways, especially when we're dealing with a clone, a full clone of a gold image, are going to rely on really, really fast storage. But there are other technologies like instant clones, like linked clones, which you might find on the Citrix side of things, that are available to us. Now, does it matter which solution you choose? I absolutely believe that it does. I think that it does. I think that there are some hypervisors that are better than others. You guys know, am I biased? Listen, I don't work for VMware anymore, right? And I can say that kind of like the hypervisor wars are over. Um, but there are certainly other considerations, especially around pricing nowadays, that might lock us out of some or others. I get it. I'm going to demonstrate today on VMware, vSphere, and Horizon. And I don't feel sort of bad doing that. I know that World of EUC, and I absolutely respect that World of EUC is an industry-wide organization, and I think it's really important that we remain agnostic. We've had some presentations that cover some of the other technologies here at World of EUC, and I just happen to have this in my home lab, so please take that for what it's worth. This is kind of what I'm going to demonstrate today. Okay. Now, we want to start here with a really beautiful gold image. And this is actually where I'm going to start to jump into some demos today. So we want to use, first of all, what we call the OS optimization tool from Omnisys. So we're going to go into our hypervisor and we're going to build a virtual machine. Okay, let's start there. Okay, let's start with our beautiful gold image. We're going to demonstrate on Windows 11, and I want to point you to some resources I think that are really important and should help you guys along the way. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can sort of see. And please, again, feel free to offer any, throw up any questions if you've got them. So the first thing that I'm going to point you guys here to is an article over at a VMware Broadcom knowledge base article. And what this is showing here, am I still sharing my screen? Can you guys still see my screen?
Yeah, Joe, we've got the screen, but the link you just shared is only to the host and panelists. You might have to
Thank you very much.
change it to show to everyone.
Yep. Everyone, thank you. All right, cool. So when we're dealing with Windows 11, we all know about the requirement for TPM devices, right? We have to have a trusted platform module in the system. Virtualization is no different. We have a virtual trusted platform module. The problem with this is that when we have a TPM device in a virtual machine, whether it's your gold image or anything else, we never want to rip that TPM device out and put it back in, okay, or replace it with another one. So there's an excellent article here at the Broadcom website that walks you through the process of creating a Windows PE image. This is an ISO image, Windows pre-execution environment. So what you'll do is you'll build your gold image, and you're going to take that gold image and add to it 2 virtual CD drives. You're going to attach the Windows PE ISO and then the version of Windows 11 that you want. And then once you boot to that, it begins the install of Windows 11. Your virtual machine is not going to have a TPM device in it. Okay, so a little bit of a pro tip right there. And the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to come over to this other article that talks about
And actually,
how you
Joe,
build.
am I allowed to chime in here and just make a not a
Please, of
question but a
course.
comment? Okay.
Yeah.
I,
All
I'm
right. So go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm really happy that you're raising awareness to this because this is as a VDI consultant myself, this is something that I'm seeing in many environments. Is organizations that are using non-supported methods to avoid the TPM requirement or adding a TPM and then removing it later. That
That's
results
bad.
in data loss. That is keys that are lost. And I can't tell you enough how important it is to make sure that the deployment that you do is supported and in line with everything that you're preaching right now.
Totally. Totally. Right. So people have used the Rufus tool to to build Windows without the TPM device or remove the requirement from it. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. This way is actually supported, okay, that I'm showing you on the screen. Now here's the problem though. This system or this recipe here on step number 2, it says create all these folders. It doesn't actually work. You don't want to create these folders in advance. Start with step number 3. It does all of the things, and you do have to create the WinPE folder, but then like if you create the mount, the drivers, and the scripts folder, it kind of ahead of time it messes you up. But you'll get through this. I did it. I don't know. It took me about a half an hour to get through, and I did all of the things that everybody does wrong. Okay, I was on the phone with Steven. Steven, what's going on with this? Um, all right. Benjamin in the chat has some questions. Um, is the removal of the TPM device intended for only in non-persistent or with persistent as well? So here's what you do. You start with your gold image without the TPM, and then as each of the desktops or each of the VMs are built for your users, a TPM, an individual unique TPM device is added at that time. So you've got the TPM device, you've got secure boot, okay? It's just your gold image itself starts without it, okay? And Horizon, for example, has a little checkbox that says, hey, do you want to add a TPM device to this? And you say yes. You've got something you want to chime in here, Steven, with on that question?
Yeah. So the question from Greg about the removal being intended only for use in non-persistent environments, keep in mind that the removal is only, it's not necessarily a removal, but it's omitting adding it during the base image creation period. Because
Good
the
point.
key is that we never want to add it and then remove it. We need to we need to deploy a supported workflow where we can create the base image without ever having a TPM.
Without it
And
ever being powered on with a TPM. So don't power it on if it has a TPM. Remove it before you power it on for the first time.
yeah. And I don't want to get too far. I know Joe's going to be covering this later in the presentation, but this, keep in mind that the conversation we're having right now is only for the base image. And there's more to it later when you actually go towards deployment, which I'll say for Joe's. Now, when you mention standard VMs as well as for VDI, the TPM requirement essentially with any operating system, if it starts using the TPM, you definitely do not want to remove it because again, keep in mind that there's keys that get stored on the TPM, whether it's a physical TPM or a VTPM, and those should never be removed from a running
Absolutely.
instance of a Windows operating system.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Stephen. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is we're going to build this VM, right? And we're going to follow this guide from Omnissa. Now, this guide is phenomenal for building a great, clean gold image. Whether you are working with Omnissa Horizon or Citrix or anybody else, okay, come to this article. It's been around for many years. They're continuing to update it. They've done a great job with it, and it really works across platforms. Okay. And they even mention things like if you're doing this in Azure, do this, right? Here's a couple of different options. So it walks us through the whole thing, and it shows us, how to use the MDT tool if you want to do that on the Microsoft side. And you're going to build the VM. Here's how you're going to install Windows. Here's how you're going to put it in an audit mode, right? Um, yeah, absolutely. All right. And but one of the things that this article talks about, and it waits, like it says here, build the VM, and then later it says remove the TPM. That's not what you want to do. Okay. So I'll give a caveat to this is start by building your gold image, your ISO image, and installing the VM without the TPM first, using this Broadcom knowledge article to use Windows PE. Then you can move into this Omnissa article.
And actually, Joe, can I
In the
also
text
chime
note.
in one more thing too?
Yeah.
Specifically, just to add to this, if you're using vSphere 8 or later and choose to deploy a Windows 11 image, when you create it, it will automatically attach a TPM device to the virtual machine. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that and remove it before it gets attached and
Pull it
before it
out.
gets installed. Whereas with vSphere 7, when you go to create operating systems, vSphere 7 only allows you to do Windows 10. And when you go to create a fresh Windows 10 VM, it will not automatically attach a VTPM.
Good. Awesome. All right. Um, all right. So we're going to go through this Omnissa article. And by the time you're done with this, hopefully, and now I've got to bring in another window here, you've got a nice gold image. Okay. And it's going to look something like this. Okay. You're going to install your agents. You're going to do all that kind of good stuff. It is not going to be domain joined at this point. You've got a nice generic gold image. And this is feeling good because it's nice and clean. So I've got a Horizon agent installed here. I've got Dynamic Environment Manager and App Volumes, all Omnissa tools. And if you head into this thing and you go to add remove programs, one of the things I just wanted to show you is that the only thing that is here are those agents that I've got here, plus the stuff that came from Microsoft. I've got VMware tools in this case installed in this system as well. Okay. You might include a couple of other things that you want all of your users to have, and I'll go over those in a little bit as well. So we're going to then, as we build it, we're going to use a tool to optimize this image. This is called the OS optimization tool, and it comes from Omnissa. But again, and I want to show you this, you can download this from Omnissa. I'm going to put the link here to the download tool. I want you to use this even if you're doing Citrix or even if you're doing, Windows VMs on some cloud service. This tool is so wonderful. It scans the system. It says, here are all the optimizations that we think you should make that will improve performance and make this a really nice tool or a really nice system for a virtual environment and a non-persistent virtual environment. Okay, so this OS optimization tool, phenomenal stuff. Okay, regardless of the platform you're on. Okay, we can talk probably for an hour on this tool alone. All right, and again, if you install any apps, you should have apps that are only used by everyone, absolutely everyone, meaning I got to license it for every user. We want those apps to be able to be patched at the same time as Windows, and hopefully not too far out of bounds of the regular Windows update cycle. Okay, because we don't want to have to go back to this gold image and update it and update it and update it every single time some app needs to be updated, right? So what does that leave us? Microsoft Office, and then the .NET stuff, and your base security software. Okay. Now that can be the Windows Defender stuff or anybody else. Now, Omnissa has another article. I'm saying the word Omnissa a lot here. Again, please take it for what it's worth, right? But this article, I really like this. Sorry, just trying to get it up here on the screen. This is called Antivirus Considerations for a Horizon environment, but listen, this is for any non-persistent environment because you want to make sure that, again, automatic updates are off. The only thing that this is going to do when a user logs in is it's going to pull in it's going to pull in the new virus definitions, and it tells you how to configure it, what to scan, what not to scan, and so on. Because presumably you've done a full scan of your gold image and it's nice and clean, right? So you're set. Okay. So this is Microsoft Office, the security stuff, and the .NET stuff. Okay. So now I've got this great gold image and there's no apps, but I got to get my users apps. Right? I got to get the users the apps that they want. So what we want is for applications themselves to be delivered in real time. What does that mean? I want a user to be able to start with a clean system that has no apps, but maybe they've got some icons where they can get to those apps and have them delivered to that VM. Okay. Only to the users that need them, right? Because we've got we've got licensing considerations around that, right? So I don't want to license AutoCAD for every single one of my users because I'm delivering every single one of my users the same gold image with AutoCAD installed. No, I want to license AutoCAD just for those users. Sorry, I'm dating myself with AutoCAD. I should have said something like CADIA or any of the other CAD tools that are being used that are out there. Okay. I want those applications completely isolated from the gold image, and I want them to be managed by us. The life cycle of those applications is a really important part of our job. And if we separate the management of the life cycle of our applications from the management of the life cycle of our gold image, we are doing so much better. Okay. Our lives are so much easier. Now, there's a lot of tools that are able to do this. Omnissa has their app volumes tool, which I happen to be a really big fan of. Liquidware Labs has Flex App. We can do MSI App Attach. We can do Citrix App Layering. Okay. When it's done, there's a really great company out there, a small company called Remo3, and they can help us automate the testing of those apps because we want to make sure that as we package those apps and we deliver them to our users separately from those VMs, that everything is going to work really well. And we, as owners of the data center, as owners of any sort of VDI systems, we're not always expert in those apps. So having some system that can automate the testing of that to make sure that they work well and that they work well for our users is really great. If you don't have a system like Remo3, then what you want to do is find friendly users that you can deploy this stuff to that aren't going to have a fit, okay, when something goes wrong. We want to have them help us test, right? Okay. Now, I want to show you a quick little demo, and I'm super conscious of time here. So I'm going to go through this as quickly as Joe can. They tend to talk a lot. And this is using app volumes, okay? So here's what we want to do. This is app volumes where we're going to capture an application that we're then going to deploy just to a certain number of users. All right, so we're going to create here an application. I'm going to use mRemoteNG. This is a tool that I use kind of all the time. It's a wrapper around PuTTY and RDP and things like that. Simple enough, we're just going to create the application here in app volumes, and we're going to create a virtual disk that the application is going to be stored in and then attached to our virtual machine. All right, so we're creating this and it's building an application. And now what I want to do is I want to package a particular version of mRemoteNG. So I'm going to give this a name for the particular version. And I think it's 1.76.20 is the version that I have. And I want it to be delivered only when the user clicks the icon. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hit the create button. We're going to deliver it on demand, and we're going to hit the create package button. And now we have mRemoteNG, and we have a particular package, and we're going to head over to the packages then. Now we have our particular version. You can see I've got some other stuff in here, including Qubit Torrent. Okay, and I want to package it. And I want to point myself to a virtual machine that is almost entirely based on my gold image. I know I got 15 minutes. And I'm going to hit the button that says start packaging. Now it's attaching that thing to my virtual machine. Now I'm going to head over to that VM, and I've got this little dialog box that says, okay, let's install the application. Here's my application installer. I'm going to run the application installer. All good. Can't believe I'm doing this in real time. All right, I'm installing the application. Here I go.
I was about to say, Joe, you got guts.
Throw it in the wind. Caution goes by.
She's looking good though.
Okay, here we go. All right, now mRemote NG is installed. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and launch it for the first time. And I want to show you a couple of things that are happening with mRemote NG. Okay, it's asking us for things like the automatic update settings. What do we want to do with this? Well, we want to turn automatic updates off. But some applications store their data in the app data directory, which is user specific. So any settings changes that I make here, and I need to know a little bit about the application. If the application stores it in the program data directory, App Volumes is going to capture that into its virtual disk. But anything in the app data directory is user specific, and we need to manage that separately. Okay, so I've launched it. I'll say ask me again later. That's fine. I'm now going to close the app, and I'm going to click OK that the application is installed. Installation is complete. And it's identified the version of the application here, okay, based on the binary executable. And now it says reboot and log in. Okay. So I'm going to reboot this machine. I'm going to log in. It's going to finalize the package. Hopefully everything goes quickly enough here. We're going to log in. Okay. Now the account I'm using to log in is just a service account that basically only has a certain limited set of privileges. Okay, everything is good. App Volumes is going to finish its stuff. Okay, revert the machine to the last known good configuration. Okay, so I'm going to revert the snapshot so I can package something else off. So I'm going to go ahead at this point. I'm going to shut down this VM. All good. I can come back to App Volumes. Okay, and I can see that I now have a package. And if I hit refresh right here, we can actually see the software is installed and it's detected the version. Here's the publisher and the whole bit. All right, so far so good. I'm going to assign this to a user. I'm going to assign this package, or the application over here, mRemote NG, to a demo user. So this is all tied into Active Directory. Everything is good. I'm going to go ahead and assign it. Now, the next thing I need to know about that application, and I'm going to come back here, is how I can manage the configuration of all of these things. So we're going to start our configuration discussion with Windows. Okay, so we want to make sure that in order to improve login speed, that we have a very limited set of GPOs. Okay, folder redirection is going to really help for documents and things, our documents directories. We will have our agent configuration for our virtual desktop agent, whatever that might be, Horizon in my case. We're going to provision certificates, local certificates, right, for us. And we want to have some sort of user context-based dynamic settings, meaning if a user changes their context, they go from home to work or whatever, we want those settings maybe to change. Okay, minimize the use of GPOs. We can use Omnissa Dynamic Environment Manager for this as an alternative to GPOs, and other organizations are doing the same sort of profile management. Liquidware, Avanti has AppSense, and so on. Now we're going to move to our application settings here. This is the stuff in the user's app data directory. Okay, local versus roaming depends on the app. Okay, and again, we want dynamic settings based on the user's context. So how do we do this? We can use FSLogix here. FSLogix is great for things like the app, your Outlook profile. Really large app data directories for a particular application. But don't forget, we are going to start managing our individual app data folders. So our Outlook PST is in the Microsoft Outlook folder, and that's how we want to manage it. Just that separate folder, okay? Individually, we don't want the entire user profile here, okay? So things like DEM and other tools are going to allow us to manage our applications and their settings, that whole user profile sections of that application completely separately. And if we want that stuff to roam with the user, we can actually use OneDrive to store the FS Logic's virtual disk, to store all of the stuff from Omnissa DEM or whatever in a roaming Outlook folder. All right. So let's go back and do a little bit of a demonstration again of mremote ng. And we need to know a little bit something about this, because with our DEM profile, because we want to turn off a few things here. We want to turn off automatic updates. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come to another VM based on my gold image, and I'm going to have a tool called Application Profiler installed, okay? And for this app profiler, I want to go out and then try to determine how this app behaves. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have our app installed. Let me see if I do. I do not. Okay, so we're going to quickly install mremote ng again over here.
Just a
I
reminder
know I'm
that
running
app
really long on
packaging,
time here. Say again?
I was just going to say app packaging is an art.
It is a little bit of an art, but I mean, listen, we are, what are we, 20 minutes, something like that total. This is a simple app. One of the nice things, if you're using Dynamic Environment Manager, that DEM has in their forums, in the community forums, has some recipes for some more complicated. But let's keep this simple. All right, so this is our application profiler, and it's going to give us a little bit of an insight into how DEM works really quickly. All right, so I'm going to start a session, and I'm going to find mremote ng. So this thing is going to launch mremote ng, and it's going to watch to see what mremote ng actually does. Okay, so it's launched mremote ng. And this is where I want to do some configuration so that our users aren't prompted to update in our non-persistent VM. Okay, so let's go ahead and customize some settings. Let's, for example, make sure that connections are saved on exit. Let's go ahead and add tooltips, and let's go down to updates, and let's disable automatic updates. And let's look at some PuTTY defaults here, because this can launch actually PuTTY and save it so that we can increase the font size, because it's always so small on our real high-res monitors, right? So we'll increase the font size in PuTTY and do some things like that, okay? All kinds of good stuff that we can add right here. I'm then going to hit the close button, okay? And then I'm going to close the app. Okay. So what we've done is we've created a configuration that says, hey, let's include some registry trees as we watch this, and let's include the app data folder for mremote ng. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this off, and I'm going to tell it to keep these settings for every user. Now, where am I going to store this stuff? I'm actually going to store this stuff in a file share called DEM configuration. Okay, and I'm going to call it mremote ng. I'm going to save it. Okay, and what this has done is this has now created an mremote ng zip file that contains the app data directory and its configuration. so that when I launch my Horizon client, into a non-persistent VM, on my other screen here, let me get it over here. It's now going out to the DEM folder. And as my user logs in, hopefully this is around 30 seconds or so. Did I forget to assign it to my user? This is where the demo falls down, right? I got to go back to my assignments. Did I assign mremote ng to my demo user? Oh, I did. I missed a button. I missed a button. We'll try it one more time. Oh, notice my nice background, right? Because I had set that earlier. That's part of my configuration. We'll try this one more time, everybody. And then we'll hang out for some questions. So, all right, it's got to log off first. It's all right. As we do this, we can kind of get to some of the Q&A as this loads. Robert asks, are there any pros and cons to using writable app volumes to store the user's profile? Writable volumes are fine, but again, what we're doing is we are using a system that has got a user's data in a particular place that might be difficult to troubleshoot. And it's grabbing everything in one chunk. So if I've got a problem with a particular app, I need to troubleshoot the entire user's profile as opposed to just the configuration of that app. Okay. So, and you can even use writable volumes to do a portion of it and FSLogic to do something else. I really like to use DEM and then really understand each individual application and how to manage that. And I like to do DEM with FSLogic for some of those bigger apps like Microsoft Outlook. And Stephen can certainly chime in here.
Yeah, just a quick note. There's no right or wrong answer. Every environment is different. Every business has different requirements as far as the applications go inside of the environment. And so you always need to take a look at what your requirements are and bring in the solutions that are necessary for you. The most important thing with any VDI environment is that you want to keep it as simple as possible, avoid complexity. It's going to bite you in the end. So always take a look at your requirements and base the solutions in your stack off of that.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then we also have a question from Benjamin Lee asking about if others are using SCCM or other tools like OSD Cloud to create their VDI golden image, especially with the fact that MDT is being deprecated.
Go ahead, please.
I'm not familiar with OSD Cloud. I am MDT is deprecated. I know that a lot of organizations and consultants are still using it. It's one of those things that are just working. Again,
Yeah.
when we start talking about the software stack, every organization is going to have different requirements. So some will use MDT, some will use Packer, some will use SCCM with OSD Cloud. So always find what works for you as long as you make sure that you keep your environment and base images in a supported state. It is critical that we keep everything in a supported state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're running low on time here. And if you've got any more questions, please throw them in there. But I think what we just saw is that, hey, we've now got mRemote NG available to us. And by the way, until I launched the app, mRemote NG wasn't actually installed. Okay. It went out, it fetched that virtual disk that was created by app volumes. It then came in and it fetched all of the data that came from my configuration that I stored. Okay. And I can go back in here and make other configuration changes if I want to when I launch mRemote NG. And for that user, that will be stored as well. Okay. So I can do whatever configuration changes I want to make. I can add connections here, for example, and all that user data will follow me from one VM to the next VM to the next VM as I log in. So I think what we've shown here is that we have essentially built a non-persistent environment. Look, my desktop background is here that feels like it's my own machine. And now we can simply say if a user has a problem, have you tried turning it off and on again? Right? So that's where we are, everybody. That's it. Thanks for
Yep.
hanging out with me. I hope you got something out of this. Again, I want to be sort of agnostic to the tools that you use. There's lots and lots of tools that are out there. And you, along with the organizations that you work with, are going to definitely have to do some evaluation of those tools and the cost of those tools and things like that. But the types of tools that I mentioned, right? You've got to have your hypervisor, you've got to build your gold image, and you want to manage the applications separately from that gold image, and you want to manage the configuration of Windows and those applications separately as well, so that when that user logs in, they get the apps that they need and they get the configuration that they used the last time they used the app, so that it really truly feels like it's their own machine, that it's their machine that they've been using for the last year, even though it's a brand new VM that they log into and they don't know the difference. They're none the wiser about it.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Joe. We appreciate it. We're running a little bit tight on time. We just wanted to mention, just a reminder to everyone before you drop, we have EUC World Amplify coming up August 4th to 7th in Minneapolis. Last year's conference was amazing. I have so much to say, not enough time to say it. And just want to make sure that you check all the recordings, podcasts. We got everything up at worldofeuc.org. And of course, we're giving away a t-shirt for those of you that have stayed in. And today's is going to Robert O'Flaherty. So Robert, will have HQ reach out, and we hope you like your new shirt. So just wanted to say thanks again to everyone for attending. Joe, sorry to cut you off. I would have loved to have
No,
a long conversation about non-persistent, but there's not enough time in the day.
right, right. I have a YouTube channel that I'm actually kind of starting to build here, and I'll put a link to that channel in the chat
Yeah, please do.
momentarily.
Because we had someone ask earlier about the YouTube channel. So we shared the World of EUC one. And if you've got one, let's throw it up there for everyone. We still got some
Yeah,
folks hanging in.
getting there. There we go. I got it. It's coming. I can't push buttons fast enough.
No worries. And so everyone, if you take a look at the chat, Joe's got his YouTube channel in there. We'll keep it up for a good 10, 15 seconds so that everyone has a chance to check it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, absolutely. Maybe I'll get a chance to throw this Brizo up as well. Thanks everyone for joining. It was great to have you. Thank you, Stephen and Jen, for all the support. Please, I hope to see you at UC World in Minnesota later on in the year. Jen put the link up. Um, I'm looking forward to it. Listen, I went to this last October, for the inaugural one. And the only thing that I can say about this is that you had a great group of people. It is the right group of people in the room. This brought together really the experts. These are the right people. This is a show you really want to come to, everybody. It was so valuable. And I mean, it felt like it felt like home. For us EUC nerds, it's home.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope to see you there. Click on the link and sign up. Go ahead, Stephen.
Make sure you register. We got a birthday special coming up too. Stay posted to social media. There might be a little bit of a surprise. Could be a
Woohoo!
discount for the conference. So, anyways, thanks again, everyone, for attending. Have a fantastic day. Thanks, Joe.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.